Well, the first year of Payday 3 content has wrapped up, and while Operation Medic Bag isn't over yet, I think now's a good time to revisit a discussion of Payday 3's current state. We've had 4 major updates and several smaller ones. Over the last year, we've seen patches, stability updates, new levels, weapons, skills, as well as some reworks, and sizable amount of content added. We've gained 7 maps, 9 primaries, 5 secondaries, an overkill weapon, a new armor, a new piece of equipment, a new throwable, 4 skill lines, and 2 characters. Now, admittingly, we started off very rough. 2.5 months before the first bit of actual content was added, followed by a 6-month gap for a major content drop. Not to mention that 2-week-long period for Sony to verify the first update to fix major aspects of the game. I guess they were too busy getting ready for the failure of Concord. With all that content out and their initial excitement now fading, now's the best time for us to look at how it feels and see if it was really good, or was that just the hype talking. When the game was released, no one could play it due to awful server issues. Starbreeze worked through the weekend to get the game running, but ultimately 5 days after launch, the first server maintenance did improve stability, but it wasn't enough. The second maintenance 2 days later got the game in a much more stable state, but ultimately an update would have to be pushed out to make significant fixes. This is where one of our first issues really happened. When the update was nearing completion, a major issue was found. Starbreeze needed to get the update out, but if they released it in the state it was in, it would have reset everyone's progress. Not wanting to piss people off more, they postponed the update and worked to fix that issue. Once they found a fix for that issue, they sent the update out, but because Payday 3 is now crossplay, PC, Xbox, and PlayStation need to be updated simultaneously, and Sony was taking their sweet time approving that update. I guess they were too busy trying to find ways to jack up the price on the PS5 Pro. For 2 weeks, Sony held up this update until finally it was released on November 2nd with a slew of fixes. The game was now in a mostly stable state, compared to how it was at least. You would still get nebula errors and quite often, but at least now you could play the game for the most part without issues. That is, if you were in North America. Now later on in the month, on November 30th, marked the next set of massive bug fixes, increasing the game's stability further. And as this past year went on, stability was something that was always being worked on. Now this update did give us the 2 legacy heists, as well as first-person animations and the transporter skill line, which finally allowed players to carry 2 bags. Something that we've wanted since Payday 2. 2 weeks later, on December 12th, we got Syntax Error, the priciest DLC in Payday history. Needless to say, people were not happy about the price of this bundle. The game already felt somewhat incomplete, and asking $10 for one heist, it's pretty freaking steep, not gonna lie. And the backlash from this would lead to Starbreeze reducing the DLC prices. All future DLCs went back to the prices that we had for Payday 2. And to compensate for people who got a season pass, they would get compensation items later on. This is a point that we will be revisiting a couple times throughout this video, so stick with me here. Now the Syntax update itself did give us a great map, a completely original enemy in the form of the Techie, a powerful shotgun, good SMG, and a not so good rifle. But hey, they can't all be winners, right? Now Syntax Error was fun, but hard thanks to the Techie's drones being way too damaging. Thankfully they would patch that before she was released on every heist, so smart move Starbreeze for just testing the waters with her. Also the Scrambler's skill line was added, which made stealth even more enjoyable. Overall, Syntax Error was an improvement, but it still felt like more needed to be done. A lot of players were just not convinced that things were going to really improve in time. It was probably the lowest point that the game has been in since launch. We wouldn't really have anything coming out until February of 2024, where Starbreeze would announce Operation Medic Bag, a plan that they had to focus and fix major issues that players were having, as well as putting out all the content they promised. Since people bought a season pass in that first year, they were obligated to put out all the content that they promised. And since now there was so much to fix and so many things that had to be done, they had to focus their efforts on specific things. And players were skeptical. They felt burned, betrayed, and kept in the dark until then. What was stopping Starbreeze from continuing this downward trend? Well, thankfully, Operation Medic Bag did prove to be a good step in the right direction. Starbreeze kind of went back to their old open book selves and demonstrated Operation Medic Bag with an update at the end of the month. An absolutely massive update full of fixes. Finally, after 5 months, we had an unready button. Not to mention they started giving us weekly blog updates. Honestly, those weekly blog updates did a lot of good in reestablishing people's faith in Payday 3. Now, I wouldn't say that even now we're at that point, but it was helpful overall. And the updates for Operation Medic Bag didn't just stop in February. Near the end of March, we got the next big update giving us Adrenaline, the Fortitude skill line, and the highly requested adaptive armor. Not to mention other weapon balances. I mean, they made the Ziv Commando good. Not sure if you remember, but up until that point, it was the worst weapon in the game. However, this update did come with an issue of making Adrenaline way too overpowered. And what furthered this issue was giving us 7 more skill points, which was nice, because now we can have more diversity in our builds, but it did kind of add to the whole overpowered nature of it. Then another month went by and we got another quality of life update, complete with free grenade. We got notable features such as quick play, skip mission intro, fun inspect animations, post-game party up, but most importantly, you could finally enter the van. A month later, oh baby, this is a big one. New progression system. No more having to complete BS challenges to level up. Another skill line was added and the techie was now released onto all the other heists. We also got loud modifiers and a few more stealth ones. Not to mention Mask of the Week. Now I will say I do somewhat miss the challenges because at the very least for the weapon ones, it gave me some reason to kind of swap between them. I would have liked that they kept the challenges and just gave us like C-stacks or something. But hey, maybe they'll return in some form or another. Then in June, after 6 months, we finally got the next major content drop. Boys in Blue. The hype train had been building for this one for a couple of months, and I can say 3 months later, it's still the best heist that was added. I enjoyed Syntax Error, but Boys in blew it out of the water. That was a lot better sounding when I was thinking it as opposed to when I said it out loud. I mean, it's got great cover, great level design, having 2 objectives going on simultaneously, that's a great idea. The new donuts system, that's fun. I like that. Donuts, that's a really good, I really like the donuts. I'm sorry, I know I mentioned it before, but I really like donuts. It felt a lot closer to what we would have normally in Payday 2. Sure, it doesn't have some of the complexities from Payday 2, but overall, it was a great update. The weapon pack gave us 3 awesome weapons. The LMG was also added for free. Not to mention, Clover came back and she was free, and has one of the only preset weapons that I think I would ever actually use. Sure, a month later we had the Mask Mania event and that didn't go so well, but that's besides the point. Boys in Blue marks a turning point for Starbreeze. They desperately needed a win, a real win. Not just some skills or bug fixes, but a solid content drop, and we got that with Boys in Blue. And it didn't stop there. In August, we got the Houston Breakout heist, another fantastic map. The level design here is fantastic. There are different ways to enter the courthouse, different ways you can choose to just even go loud. There's a variety that's offered in the Houston Breakout heist that you don't see in a lot of the previous maps. Sure, it doesn't have the RNG and a lot of the other aspects of Payday 2, but it is also another step in the right direction. It somewhat builds off of some concepts from previous heists to really give us another solid heist. Is it as good as Boys in Blue? I'm not sure. I would honestly say Boys in Blue is still probably better, but for me, Houston Breakout is a close second, with Syntax Error coming up in third. And this update wasn't just a heist, it was a full package. The weapons we got this time were a bit questionable, but the more you unlocked for them, the better they got. Except for the Tribune, I don't think that weapon will ever be ready for overkill, but that's okay. The harder the game is, the more restrictive the options become. That's normal in gaming, even Payday 2 had that. Now, we weren't just breaking Dallas's brother out of the courthouse, we also got the Diamond District. And the Diamond District heist was one that came right the hell out of nowhere. From what it seemed, we weren't gonna really get much content this year that wasn't promised previously. So this was a nice surprise. Is it basically a spiritual successor to 4 Stars? Yes, but it does have the added bonus of all the mechanics that were added in Payday 3. The RNG for this one surpasses the ones that we saw in the previous heists. Unfortunately, up to this point, we haven't really gotten a lot of RNG, which is something that has been a staple for Payday since, well, Payday the heist. Granted, back then it was a lot of small things, but here I feel like it should have been better than it was in Payday 2. And the best heist to show that they are understanding that players want more RNG is what came in the last update for the year. Fear and Greed. The sentiment for this one, however, wasn't as great as the last 2. The heist felt a bit rushed. There were bugs, and I'm not just talking about the lighting issue, but it seems like the AI pathing in this one could have used some more work. Now, full disclosure, I do like this heist. However, out of the paid DLC, this one is by far the weakest. The main issue is that it just feels kinda simple. Now, that's not necessarily a bad thing. I mean, the way you steal the money in this one is unique, but ultimately, as the heist to end the year on, it's not what I would have done. And I have a concept of something they could have done, and I'll mention that later closer to the end of the video. I think they should have done something more exciting. However, the level design is great. Lots of good cover, and who could be upset with a minigun in their arms? Man, I love this thing. It's so much fun. Is it as effective as the Red Fox for taking on dozers? Not at all, but it's a hell of a lot more fun to use on everyone else. Well, except for snipers, for obvious reasons. Now there is more that happened this past year, like the whole thing with Ammo Funnel and how poorly the community responded. As awful as that was, it was nice to see players once again talking about the game on that level. I think it shows that people have come back, and every update confirms this. Every time there's a big content update, the player count increases. And it doesn't just go back down, but it does stay in the thousands to some level. Is that as good as Payday 2? Not at all, but it is a significant improvement. I mean, before Operation Medic Bag, I could say that I was one of the remaining 200 PC players. I was running into the same people constantly. But now with all the content updates, I can say the future for Payday 3 is looking a lot brighter than it was a year ago. I can say, looking back, that the game has improved significantly, and the improvements aren't going to stop. I can say, looking back, that the game has improved significantly, but there is still a lot of work that needs to be done. Would I recommend this game at full price to anybody? Maybe not, but I would definitely say it's worth at least keeping an eye on. The improvements aren't going to stop. Starbreeze has shown that they can keep their word. Sure, they might have stumbled here and there, but ultimately they got the content they promised out and more. This is just the first year, and Operation Medic Bag isn't over yet. In October alone, we're getting a revamped UI, in-game voice chat, and finally the long-awaited server browser. And sure, some of these things should have been there on launch, but guess what? Payday 2 didn't have a contract broker for a few months. Imagine not being able to pick the heist you want to play on the difficulty you want to play it on. I made a whole video comparing Payday 3 to Payday 2's updates after launch. You should check that out. I put a lot of time into it. I went hard on that one. Now in the comments section on every update on Steam, YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, is that people say that they'll return to the game only after they add the voice chat and server browser features. So to those players, I say, I'll see ya soon. As for the future of Payday 3, there are things that I would love to see. First off, can we get the old Vlad back? This picture makes me sad. On top of that, I would like to see less preset stuff. I've mentioned this several times over the past year for Payday 3 videos I put out, but I really hate presets. Am I the only one? Am I the only one that doesn't like them? Please tell me. I'm curious why they keep putting these out. When we had the old challenge system, it actually kind of made sense for a few of them. Like the one for the scar, you couldn't get the scar for a while, and you were able to actually get the preset well before getting the actual scar unlocked. So it made sense in order to have it to complete those challenges to level up faster, but now without challenges, it doesn't seem like there was any point to it. Why would I go with a preset weapon that is objectively worse than what I could put together myself? I guess if I just unlock the weapon and I have $20 million lying around, I could buy that and then use it until I get all the upgrades for the other one and then customize it the way I want to, but I like the skins on a lot of these. If we could keep the skins and still modify the weapon, I think we would all like these a lot more. Right now, they just feel like inventory clutter. I have yet to see anybody actually use one of these for an extended period of time. I don't know if I've seen anybody actually using any of the presets. And this ties in with the compensation items. I mean, these presets are a joke. Really, Starbreeze? You're gonna give us some presets as compensation? The one for the Fick doesn't even have a skin on it. But the outfits are nice. I actually use this one all the time. But the preset guns, my God, I am so sick of these things. Not to mention the preset masks. I mean, to add insult to injury to syntax error, preset masks? What's nice is they actually did learn from this, and moving forward, they made every mask customizable, except for the Alienware one for some reason. But I'm confused as to what they were thinking with that. Aside from my preset problem, I have some ideas on what Starbreeze can do going into year 2 when it comes to heists. While Fear and Greed did show signs of improvement when it comes to RNG, I think ultimately what Payday 3 could really benefit from are good puzzles. The puzzles in Payday 2 add a lot of RNG and differences between the heists, even if it's the same heist over and over again. Looking back at all the heists we never got a puzzle to solve on any of the heists that we have currently in the game. See, Payday 2 has different levels of puzzle. Some are very simple, like Beneath the Mountain. All you do in that one is check the cameras to see where the loot is, and then you open up the doors accordingly. Some of them are Bane giving you a piece of information and then you having to deduce the rest. Others are like Bullock Mansion, Big Oil, Crude Awakening. Heists that have you having to figure something out from start to finish. Like in Bullock's Mansion, you have to search different binders to get a word and a number. The word connects with a symbol, and the number tells you the order in which the symbols have to be pressed. Big Oil gives you pieces of information so that way you can figure out which one of the fission generators you need to steal, unless you're going to be Dr. Miserable. And Crude Awakening has you basically playing a three-dimensional version of Pipe Dream. Having to figure something out while on a heist like that gives it more depth. And it also makes each heist have more replay value. Sure, you might be doing some of the similar things over and over again, but overall, it's going to be a slightly different experience each time. When I look back at the last year's worth of heists, here's what I see. Syntax error tells you which servers to get on a computer that you hack. Houston Breakout tells you on a screen to get either physical or digital evidence. Fear and Greed would just tell you which booth to hack. Nothing complex at all. Now, I'm not saying every heist should have you be Sherlock Holmes, but I think it would be nice if one of them had some kind of a puzzle. I mean, for two of those heists, you just refer to a screen to tell you what needs to be grabbed to be processed in order to progress. And even when you do that, you might have processed the wrong one because it's random. And while Payday 2 does do this with some heists like the Hoxton Breakout with the clown case boxes, there are ways to add more depth into this. For instance, Hotline Miami or Beneath the Mountain. Sure, in Hotline Miami, Bane tells you where to look, but ultimately you have to figure out which barcode to scan. And it's not a guessing game. You can piece it together, and good thing too, because the computer you use takes forever. This is something I would love to see going into year 2. Just more puzzles. Whether it be as simple as Beneath the Mountain or as complex as Bullock Mansion, Big Oil, and Crude Awakening. Also, I would love, absolutely love to see Shadow Raid return as a legacy heist. Or at least a heist with a similar concept. The idea of just sneaking in and stealing whatever you can. Nothing in particular, just grab loot. That's all I care about. That's a heist concept that I want to see in Payday 3. And I know I'm not the only one when it comes to that. I was very confused why Murky Station was picked. They said it's because it was a very popular heist, but I believe Shadow Raid was actually more popular than Murky Station. So I'm very confused as to why Murky Station was picked. And as for the end of year 2, we should have the heist be something that's exciting to get us pumped up and ready for the next year. This is something that I think Fear and Greed failed on. Why did we end the year this way? I was in CDog's chat after Fear and Greed came out, and we were talking about how they should have ended the year. We were thinking something along the lines of like an assassination. No, not that one. But what if it was on someone close to Concord? Like what if we were assassinating or trying to get information from somebody that worked for Concord? Someone that would help the gang during the events of Fear and Greed. Like if you stealthed it, you can force them to give you information like you do in Undercover. But if you went loud, you would have to finish them off and hack their computer or something. Then you could save Fear and Greed for like the beginning of year 2. I don't know. What do you think? I think it would have been cool to have something more exciting than just we're going to have a computer do all the work for us. Granted, it was probably a lot easier to do what they did given the time constraints that they had. But I think going into year 2, they should end it on something more of an exciting note. Something to build off of or get us speculating for the following year's worth of content. When it comes to the Payday community, since the release of Payday 3 up until the White House update, people were looking for that secret. People were digging and looking for the lore. So give us something. We've been getting a little snippets here and there about the Kataru Kings, and I'm excited to see where that's going to go. But ultimately, we're going to want more. And while we're on the topic of more, can we get more achievements, please? Like, Payday 2 has got a lot of achievements. Come on, where are my challenges? Give me something to go after. I know Almir said he would love to have more of those, so I'm excited to see where we're going to end up next year. I'm still going to put out Payday 3 content over the course of the next year, and I would love to hear what you guys think of this past year, as well as what you want to see going into the future. But until next time, I've been CabooseDOTexe. Remember to drink plenty of water, and as always, remember, I love you. Bye-bye.